Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Morning, Bill.
Did I max it out?
Not as bad as last time, but the pin's going bang into the red there. Good thing we have other microphones.
Episode number 203, Peter. Do you have these 7 common personality traits to be a successful investor?
Uh-oh.
I have to tell you something. It usually takes me like an hour and a half or 2 hours to write one of these podcasts, usually because I kind of like have it in my head and I've already thought about what it is. But it takes, I time block about 2 hours. This puppy took me over 3 hours to write yesterday. And I'm not quite sure why, other than I had to kind of go through some stuff in my head to figure it out. You know, a lot of erasing and like, you know, throwing garbage, you know, that kind of stuff. So I hope that our listeners enjoy. I hope it's as smooth as I think it is in my head and when I read it. And it's not complex, off the beaten path topic that nobody wants to listen to. So here's the description. You ready?
Go ahead.
With real estate making more millionaires than anything else on planet Earth, it also has so many different ways to grow wealth for so many different types of people. When first starting, you run into all these discrepancies, and it could be confusing and hard to wrap any sense around what to do. Sound familiar, Peter?
Oh, hell yeah. Not lately, but sure. In the beginning, it's like, what the hell?
There you go. But this podcast can help you clear up this confusion by giving you some stable data to build your foundation of a healthy and strong real estate investing future. Here is why. These 7 common personality traits alone trump any education, resources, ideas, or any other advantages you might believe others have that you lack.
Yeah, no, I believe it. That makes sense.
People sell houses, people sign the documents, people make agreements, and guide assets where they go. You can't do deals without a buyer and a seller, both people and agreements. So you got to have people, right? Without people, it doesn't work, right? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Knowing and understanding people in this podcast, I plan to give you 7 traits you can create yourself and soar ahead of all the Yale graduates and put you into or put you onto the road to real estate success. Bold promise, I know, but stick with me, and you won't regret it. So let's get started.
7 traits.
7 traits.
Where'd you get them?
Up there, baby.
In that dark place inside there.
There was an article on, I think, Bigger Pockets that triggered it for me. So, and I just started thinking about it, and I'm like, aha! Here we go. You ready?
Yeah, go. I'm interested. See if I have any.
Jump right in. We're going to measure Peter. I didn't think of that.
No, because, I swear to God, I'm sure I have a couple, but I'm sure I'm missing some.
Oh.
Because, honestly, I do deals, but I need to do more. It's like I do it, but not enough, right? So I got something, but what am I missing? And don't pick on me. And don't pick on me.
Oh, listeners, he just admitted that he's a C student. He's not an A.
Well, compared to who? I mean, compared to a lot of people, I'm probably B. Compared to where I want to be, I'm a C or a D. Anyways, let's see what happens. Let's see if you help me today, huh?
All right. Personality, Peter, what is it? Let's start with that, huh?
Personality. Yeah. Well.
This is often referred to as individual differences and characteristic patterns of thinking, feeling, behaving, attitudes and opinions that is most clearly expressed in interaction with other people.
Yeah, behavior.
How'd I do?
That's really good. Yeah, I was just reading some stuff about this too. I think what I read kind of lumped it as behavior,
Yeah.
like how a person behaves. Is that close?
Yeah, it's more than that. So I'm going to read it again. This is often referred to as individual differences in characteristic patterns of thinking, feelings, behaving, attitudes, and opinions that is most clearly expressed in interaction with other people.
I got it. Yeah, all that stuff. The way I look at all that stuff, you can't see what somebody's thinking or
Right.
his attitude until he starts to behave, and you watch his behavior, and you can go, oh, then you know what the guy's about by the way he acts. That makes sense that way?
I know you're stuck on behavior, but it's his attitude.
Yeah.
It's his opinion.
Yeah.
It's the way he thinks, the way he feels. So yeah, behavior could be one thing. And we're going to cover this because there's two different kinds of behavior.
Okay.
So we're going to cover that. Okay.
Sure.
So that's what we're going to cover, right?
Yep.
So this would mean to me, if you follow this definition, which is kind of my own definition.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a mixture of a couple different definitions I found in dictionaries, but it's my own definition for all intensive purposes, right? So this would mean to me, there could be different behavioral characteristics in different environments, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, I know I act differently in certain places. I think everybody does.
So let me explain. Could be in a social or a temporary environment you could have, let's do it this way. You could have a social or temporary personality developed by an environment.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Or you could have the actual long-standing, long-term, real personality we have when we're not in the social environment.
Yeah, how the person really is.
Right. You and I both know what we act like when we're alone or with our spouse, as opposed to how you would act when you're in a party, is much different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So your social personality is going to be like your best foot forward, right?
Yep.
Unless you're someone like me and you just don't give a beep.
Yeah.
Start with an F. All right. You just kind of like, I get to a certain point where I just deal with so many people and so many things, and I'm just the same way all the time,
Yeah, no surprises. That's you.
So I don't know if that's good or bad, but there you go.
Well, at least we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing with me is I realized lately I don't deal. I used to be different with my wife in public as I was in, it's just a common thing, but not anymore. It's like I'm just who I am and what I do, and it's I'll tell you the truth. I'm way off script right now, but I'm going to tell you the truth. So I have a guy that I call him my coach or my mentor, right? He's not really that. Emma says he's a good person for me to bounce things off of.
Right.
I hired him some years ago to do Facebook stuff for me, and we became friends, and we meet every Friday morning, and I look forward to it. I pay him pretty good money because I value his time, right? And I bounce things off of him. I forgot why I was even telling you this. I was telling you this for a reason.
Because you don't act differently in public with your wife when you're home.
Yeah. So anyways, he actually made some observations about me that I didn't really think of, and it's because your personality has to match your surroundings, right? So when I'm talking to people, like right now, it's like I have certain personalities that listen to me and certain personalities that just hate me, and I'm cool with that. It's like, just go away. I'm okay with that. It's just how it is, So There was a story in there. I forgot what it is and I diverted, but I'm going to go back to the podcast. We don't need to be hearing about me and my personal life, right? So how about this? A social personality or an antisocial personality, right? So I read that in L. Ron Hubbard's book in Dianetics.
Yeah.
Right. That's a really, if you want to know about, well, actually there's two books that I've read and they're not exactly the same type of books, but one was I first read a book from Maxwell Maltz called Psycho-Cybernetics.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal book about personalities. And then I read Hubbard's book on Dianetics, and he talks about in there the social and the antisocial characteristics. Okay, so that's not something I made up. Okay,
Yeah.
that's something L. Ron Hubbard did. Okay, so.
And you're not just talking about like people who are friendly and parties. You're talking about like nice guys, bad guys, antisocial, like not good.
We're going to talk about that now. Psycho-Cybernetics talked about it, and the difference between good and evil. I mean, they did a really good job, but Hubbard like named it. Okay, so there's two schools of thought there, but one had better language.
Yeah.
But Maxwell Maltz was in the early 1900s. I think he was 1910.
Jeez.
1915 maybe. I'm not 100% sure of the date. And then Hubbard came along and started doing his writings in 1940.
Yeah.
Right. So there's connections there. I'm sure they both had some resources and stuff that they were using because there's too many connections there. They write too many things. The other one is if you want to get some peripheral vision on this, Think and Grow Rich.
Napoleon Hill.
Thank you. I couldn't remember. Napoleon Hill. He did a good job of personalities on wealthy people.
Mm.
Now, I have to tell you, I'm so diverted from this podcast right now. It's unbelievable. Right now, I have been watching the History Channel. I love that channel. I pay way too much money for cable TV because of the History Channel. And I just found out I don't have to have cable TV to get the History Channel. So I'm working on that, right? So
Yeah.
I'm good at real estate. I'm not always good with some other stuff, okay? So point I'm trying to make is they have a series on what is it, the great men that built America or something like that, and they talk about Vanderbilt and Rockefeller and Carnegie. They call him Carnegie. I thought it was Carnegie, but it's Carnegie. They talk about Morgan, right? These guys actually have antisocial characteristics, but they were very wealthy. They were big thinkers, but they actually, what's his name? The oil guy. I just said it.
Rockefeller oil?
Rockefeller. He had a lot of antisocial characteristics, so much so that there was a competition at the end of their lives because Rockefeller lived to his 90s and Vanderbilt, I think, lived until his early 80s, might be late 70s. And they actually had a competition at the end of their life on philanthropy, who gave away more money. And my impression of it was guilt.
Bill, I actually heard something about that. This, something I picked up, may not be true, but take it with a grain of salt. There was a certain point where because these guys were not that nice, people hated them. They took advantage of things and they hated. I've seen pictures. He looked terrible when he was old. He didn't look happy and well. He looked sick and miserable. And he said to his staff, like, can you find a way to make people stop hating me? And some guy came up with, I know what we'll do. We'll give money away to philanthropy and we'll advertise it so you look like a good guy, not the schmuck that you are. Right. And that seems to be and they made sure that it was tax deductible.
Yeah. They were
connections. That's the story I heard.
They were PR people, public relations people. They definitely, in the end, had to do that. All right. So let's go back to what we're talking about. So a social personality is this is how you measure them. This is how you kind of this is the stick that you use to measure them, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. A social personality. Anyway, so I just want to I have attention on this. So the three books are Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Psycho-Cybernetics. I don't know how to spell it. Maxwell Maltz, and L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics. Okay, those three books are phenomenal books on personalities and understanding people and wealth, to be honest with you.
And I read two of those, and they're phenomenally helpful. I mean, it's like, how do you live without that kind of stuff? And when you read books about rich people by rich people, don't think it's about money. It's about personality and life and taking care of your family and the world around you. A lot of these guys are nice guys. They're not all horrible, you know? And there's always that vein of like miraculously doing something to be helpful to people in your own family, in your neighborhood. So there's some great guidance and inspiration there.
Totally.
It's not just about the bottom line.
Totally. All right. So going back to, so we had the social personality and the antisocial personality, right? So the social personality tends to create and think in futures. He's a free thinker. Okay. So he tends to create things and have creative ideas, and, you know, is concerned about the future, is concerned about the most amount of people involved and the most amount of things involved, right? So when he expands not just himself, you know, like his family and his groups and, you know, the man, you know, his state or his town, you know, mankind, they like lift up with him.
Yeah.
Right. The antisocial personality. What?
I'm sorry. I'm laughing. I just thought of something. The antisocial person pretends to be that guy, but he's not. Right? Sorry.
Especially Democrats lately.
Oh, he said
it. Antisocial personalities, all right, are destructive and think that you should be like them or you're no ally of theirs.
Oh, yeah. But they pretend really good, though, right? They put up a good front.
Right. Yeah, they're like those are like the what do they call them? Passive aggressive. You know, when you're not looking, they stab you in the back. Those are the ones that talk about you behind your back, right? Those are the ones that can't confront you and say, "Hey, Pete, I don't like what you said yesterday. Don't say that again." Instead, they'll go tell all their friends what you said and talk about you and demoralize you when you're not confronting them.
Yeah.
Right. Antisocial personalities. Right.
Yeah.
So the second, you know, the antisocial personality tends to be evil, by the way. And there's no other way to put it. They have more evilness to them, you know. You know, most people want to be good. Evil, you know, and it's taught backwards in our society. And evil, you know, like some religions talk about how you're evil and you should be good. It's really the other way around. Every person wants to be good. And then things happen and whatever, you know, over his course of his experiences, he turns evil or she turns evil, right? So the weird thing is the percentages.
I was just wondering that. I mean, are there more good guys, bad guys? It looks like there's a lot of bad guys in the world. So what do you got for percentages? That's important.
So the smallest percentage of our population are the bad guys, and just follow the 80-20 rule that we talk about all the time. I mean, 20,
that's crazy.
20% are like either antisocial or in the guise of the antisocial. In other words, they're in their universe and they're being affected by them.
Is that like the mob following the two jerks in town?
Yeah, you know, or you know, 80, you know, the 80% are good. You know, so 80% of the people are good. So that means if you have 5 employees, Peter, one of them is a bad guy. Yeah. And just like what you said, you know, what happens is they hide.
Well, you can't go around, you know, showing people I'm the jerk because they'll get you. You have to pretend to be the good guy, right?
They're pretenders. That's what I call them in the office, pretenders. Yeah. Right. You know, those are the ones that have trouble. Right. So the point is that the smaller percentage is infiltrating the larger percentage of people.
Yeah.
And
Like a virus.
yeah, yeah. Right. So you get a handful of bad guys. Like, I'm just going to say it, Peter. Yes, I'm going to pull a Levin thing. Yes, I'm going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Pelosi is antisocial. Point blank. She has antisocial characteristics glued to her forehead.
Yeah.
Schumer has antisocial characteristics.
Yeah.
What's his name? The one that did the investigation.
Yeah, I know.
Shift. He has antisocial characteristics. Okay. Now, there are Republicans, but they haven't been in the news as much lately, so I can't remember them.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them have been accused, and now we're finding out that it was lies behind it. And this is the problem to me is, because I've studied a little bit of what you're talking about too. People often cannot tell the good guy from the bad guy.
Right.
You know, we're the people that put Jesus on a cross and give money to Hitler and elect him. He got elected.
Right. Right.
He didn't just go in there as a coup. He got elected. So people mistakenly put him there. So I think people can't tell half the time the good guy and the bad guy, because the bad guy lies and the good guy gets attacked. They make it look like every cowboy show, the good guy is chased, put in jail. He has to break out, find the real bad guys, and then get exonerated right after the sunset. Roy Rogers is in jail every other episode.
Right. So here's just to end this off, because I went too long on this, but just to end this off, here's my point. Okay. If you think you're antisocial and know that reform is possible and that you could fix yourself, that takes you out of the antisocial characteristics. Because one of the things about antisocial people is they don't think they think they're perfect. They don't believe in reform, and they don't think they could be fixed.
That's nasty.
Right. So, if I was Donald Trump's marketing guy, and I'm nowhere near qualified to be that, but I could win him the election. I really believe all he'd have to do is, every time somebody comes out with something about him, all he would have to do is respond with this sentence, and he would win the election.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
People accuse those of what they themselves are doing. Accuse those of what they themselves are doing.
Yeah. Because
that's what's being proved right now. All these allocations of the Democratic Party, especially Pelosi and Schumer and Cuomo and all these people that were trying to take him down. Now, I'm not saying Trump's a good boy either, but he has more social characteristics than antisocial characteristics. He wants to do more good than bad.
Well, isn't it important? I saw that somebody posted this, and we shouldn't have to say this to each other. Isn't it important to see what people do, not what they say and what they promise and what the actual results are? Like, oh, he got rid of some regulations. We'll see how it turns out. Oh, look, things are better. Well, that was a bad regulation then. Take it easy, relax, All
right. So that was pretty distracting. Sorry about that.
Hey, Bill, there goes half our listeners.
Yeah. We're not supposed to be talking about politics, but there you go. Let's get back to real estate investing. Okay. Yeah. So after dealing with so many wannabe and successful real estate investors, I think I have compiled a list of 7 traits that you can implement and grow your investing business with.
Okay.
So number 1, you ready, Peter?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Knowledge. Okay. Any good investor needs data. Without it, he can sink a ship.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm not talking about memorizing text from a book and then taking a test to measure your intelligence or how good your memory skills are. No, I'm talking about the ability. To me, knowledge is the ability to observe correctly. That's like true intelligence to me. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm talking about observing something without allowing your feelings your opinions, your past experiences, especially the bad ones that are like in your subconscious mind that you're not aware of, ideas, imagination, or anything else influence this data. It has to be pure in present time, like right now, not altered without any contradiction.
Yeah.
So let's say you and I are in, we've done this before. So, you know, the old cop and robbers movies, right? And the bad guy gets caught and they bring him into the interrogation room, right? And there they sit in the padded walls with a table and a light and maybe some cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
So you got the bad guy on one side of the table and you got the good guy on the other side of the table, right? Put a bottle of water in the middle of that table. You with me?
I gotcha.
So let's say there's a label on that bottle of water that wraps around the whole bottle. So what is the criminal going to see that the cop doesn't see? And what is the cop going to see that the criminal doesn't see? Because there's two different points of view, right? So they're seeing it from different angles, right? So turn your head all the way to the right, Peter, because we're on video. Turn your head all the way to the right. Look at the wall. So if we observe Peter right now, you'll notice that we can see an ear, half a nose, one eye, and half a mouth, right? We don't know if he has now. Yeah. So when you turn this way, we can see the other ear, the other eye. But when he has his head turned and you can only see one side of his head, you have to, you can't assume he has another ear because you've seen other people that have two ears.
That's right.
Or most people have two ears. We don't know that he has two ears. I mean, he could have been in the war and the whole right side of his face could be missing. We don't know that. Right?
So is this like, hey, Bill, is this like when we go into a building and we're looking at the building and we go down in the basement, we don't notice there isn't a furnace there?
Exactly. So this is very important in real estate, right? So actually, let me just keep reading my notes here. So this is a major factor when analyzing deals, especially pretty house deals where the main factor is what the seller is thinking and what their intention is. See, one of the reasons that makes me who I am is because I've studied some of these books on personality traits, you know, the books that we talked about already, right? Yeah. I have some concept of what people are like. So my job is to constantly have an X-ray machine and see if I could figure out people's thoughts. That's what makes my negotiation skills pretty deep. Now, I'm not going to try to teach somebody that because that's a whole nother thing, but it's helpful, right? And I'm going to cover in a few minutes the simplicity of that. I don't want to talk about it now, but there's a simple way to do exactly what I just talked about without having to go do all the education like I did. I figured out some simple ways to actually do that.
Oh, good.
So,
because I watch you in houses and just watch the wheels click in your head and how you just ask the people questions and you talk to them and you find things out that's really important for them, not just what you want to do. It's for them. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything done. And I watch you do that. It's pretty amazing. I try.
So thank you. But here's the point that I want to make. Okay. I don't know how long we are into the podcast, half hour into the podcast. So here's the point that I want to make is I get good in God about my ability to do math and structure deals. Right. So on a scale, let me think how I could do this. That is probably like if you put it on a scale of things that I need, and let's say there's 10 things, 1 is number 1 and 10 is the least.
Yeah.
I would probably put that down in, I don't know, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because who cares that you have the numbers? Does it work for the guy, you know?
But so many people think that's number 1. That's like the thing they have to learn is how to do this math and the deal structuring and how do I do it? Because they're so worried about losing their money, right? So one of the top things on this scale, I should actually make a scale like this, but one of the top things on the scale would be reading people.
Yeah.
And I actually told one of my students, we talked about this in a podcast, and I can't find it, but it's the telltales.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
poker,
Yeah.
right? You know, when the guy has certain habits when he has a hand and certain habits when he doesn't, it's called the telltale, right? That's kind of like what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And when you start to notice those, but getting back to what I'm saying, that's the observation skills that I'm talking about. Like the other day you told me, which was well done, right? We were talking to a realtor and you said that, did you notice her mouth does a certain thing when she says certain, you know, when she does certain.
Yeah. If she was talking about something that was problematic, gee, this might not work out to go. Anything she was kind of worried about, her lip went to the left, like, eh. It was not a big deal. It was kind of cute, but you can see like when somebody goes, you know, like, I don't know.
That's a telltale.
Yeah.
That's a telltale. Okay. So this is a major factor when you're doing deals, is the ability to, so the knowledge is not the knowledge of like go study courses on how to like do subject to. I mean, that's important to some extent, but believe it or not, you'll learn more of that when you're doing it than studying it.
Huh.
So the best thing you could do is you can find a mentor or someone to help you that's been there before. You know, like I say, Peter, can you go pick up a bag of cash for me? And you're like, sure. I'm like, okay, good. Go up to the stop sign and take a right, but make sure you veer to the left, because if you don't, there's a canyon there and you may not make it back. You know what I mean? So if somebody doesn't tell you that, then what's the sense in going and get the bag of cash? Because you may not come back. It may cost you your life.
Yeah.
You know, bad analogy, but you get what I'm saying. So
bad analogy. That was yesterday.
So the point that I'm trying to make here is that, you know, if you can observe data or collect data cleanly without injecting your personalities, bad experiences, you know, all these things that I talk about, ideas, you know, how many people try to buy a subject to deal and they're like, I would never do that. So how confident are you going to be giving that presentation when you're like, I would never do that? That's injecting your past experiences or your, you know, your ideas or experiences into the, you know, into the conversation. You're not, when you're doing that, you're in your own head. You're not observing what's really happening. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on. Oh, look, somebody.
Who's calling, Bill?
George is calling about a house.
Okay. The hotline.
Yeah, the hotline. Yeah, it's from Florida too. All right, good. Next. Patience. So did I cover knowledge? Do we got knowledge? We went a little longer on that than I wanted to, but I want to clarify that knowledge is not studying and absorbing data. It's the ability to observe it as it's happening.
Yeah.
Because the deal unfolds in front of you as you ask more questions, and you have to be swift and be able to, you know, catch these little telltales quickly so you can structure deals. Okay.
Yeah. That's fine.
I just heard some weird thing in the mic. Okay, good.
There was just a little bit of a freeze.
So patience is next. As investors, we study real estate crap all the time. Then when we have a chance or given the chance, we repeat what we learned in the seminar to the seller and confuse the hell out of them. How do I know this? Almost every coaching client does it, because I make my coaching clients record themselves so I can hear what they're saying and how they're saying, so I can critique them. Okay. And we do that in a group setting, and it is amazing. I've had the most amount of gain in my coaching group when we get them to actually record themselves or their VAs, their virtual assistants, when they're talking to people, so that we can change the bad habits.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, think about this. Could, I don't know, give me an actor's name. Tom Selleck. Could Tom Selleck be as wealthy or as famous as he is if he didn't follow his scripts? And I don't mean just the words. I'm talking about the emotions and, you know, the body movement and the gestures and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, they got a lot of direction. That's why directors are there. They get a lot of direction.
Right. Okay. So, anyways, so as an investor, we study real estate crap all the time. And then we go to the seminar and we leave the seminar, and where do we deliver our seminar?
Yeah, right.
And
We hoping to just inundate the guy with all the data, so he just gives in and goes, okay, I'll go along with paragraph 42. I'll do that.
right,
By
exactly.
default. I mean, what's the plan there?
Right. So I also call this, all right, too steep of a gradient. Right. So this is too much data too fast.
Right.
Okay.
Well, isn't it also a lot of data that the person doesn't need to know? If you're shotgunning the guy, there's most of it is like useless and he's going to turn off. No?
So, yeah. So that's exactly my point. So I have a few examples. I mean, you don't teach a 3-year-old baby to crap in a toilet, do you?
Sorry, I was watching Look Who's Talking Too last night, and they had the little potty for the little kid. It was funny. They were trying.
My granddaughter, 3 years old. I mean, 3 months old.
Oh, yeah.
She was over for dinner. I mean, you know, kids were over for dinner over the holidays, you know, Memorial Day. And we started with this because I had her on my lap because they wanted to eat and they couldn't eat because somebody had to hold the baby. I don't know why they couldn't just put them in, you know, put the baby in the thing or whatever, but whatever. I just go along. I'll hold the baby. So I you know, we had mashed potatoes. So I was going to feed her some mashed potatoes. And my daughter's like, no, don't do that.
Not yet.
She's like, yes. She's like, and then I find out something I didn't know, Peter. You know, now I've raised a bunch of kids, but I didn't know this. Did you know that when they're babies like that, you can't give them water? I didn't know that. Water's bad for kids.
Well, that's confusing. I remember barley water for kids.
Doesn't make sense to me because she mixes up her formula with water. So I don't know what that meant. But anyways, here's another example. Here's another example. 10-year-old girl, you don't want to teach her how to kiss a boy, do you?
No, hell no.
Right?
No.
How about a young adult, like a 20-year-old kid, talk to them about losing their hair or their teeth?
They won't listen.
Okay. See, everything has a time and a place.
Yeah.
So it's accepted correctly. Otherwise, it gets brushed off. Your offers are the same way, right? So you want to time release your data. You'll get to all of it, but you just need to do it in the right sequence.
Are we doing the patience one?
Yeah.
Figures.
So you got to have patience.
Yeah.
You got to guide them through, you know, when they trip and fall, you got to let them get back up and brush their knees off. And you got to wait for them.
Yeah.
Right. You'll get there, which Peter, you'll attest to this. So how many times have we gone, and you had to learn this because everybody has to learn this, to a house and they're like, I only have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The house, I only have 15 minutes.
Yeah, not good.
How long does it take to do our presentation?
At 45.
Yeah. So I plan 90 minutes in a house because we all know that Bill could be verbose. I can't just I have to tell my stories and, you know, all my stuff. And that's just how I am. And if you don't like it, then don't listen because that's how it is. But I bought a lot of houses because of it, right? In religion, we call that parables, telling stories that have some meaning to them, right?
Yeah, they're not just random stories. I've seen you do it where you can see a person may have a concern about something. So maybe even before they bring it up, if you're aware of it, you tell a story. They don't even bring it up. They stop worrying about something.
Right. So it's usually with some sort of a intended ending or a lesson.
Yeah.
Right. Or my experience on how that happened. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you the story now, but I'm going to tell you one of the best parables that I have is subject to. about how I sold the house and the lawyer didn't pay the mortgage.
Right.
I got foreclosure notice 3 months later or 4 months later, and it taught me nobody teaches that. Nobody teaches that.
Is that the don't trust your lawyer lesson?
No, the lesson is that if you do subject to, your name is on the deed, the person's name is on the loan. So when you're signing them up, or you're actually, talking about how to do this, my story of how I didn't, my attorney didn't pay the mortgage, and then they went to foreclosure. The first thing that happens is they do a deed search, a title search.
Yeah.
And my name is on the deed and their name is on the deed. So I'm not getting away with stealing your house. I'm in court with you. I'm as legally responsible as you are, if not more, because I have more assets than you probably.
Well, if you have the deed, you've got what they call the collateral, right?
Right.
That's pretty important.
It's a great story to tell because it soothes them on. Now, I told you, I just bought a book on subject to that was written back in the 80s or 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
I'm always reading like stuff wherever I can find it. If I just bought a book yesterday on how to do lease options.
I thought you knew how to do that.
Do, but you never know. Read the book and I could get some new tip, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my point is that the ability to tell that story correctly at the right time allows me to make more subject to deals than the average guy.
Right.
Because that story was not only told, but it was told when the interest was peaked. So help me with this saying, because I always get it wrong. It's like the teacher arrives when the student's ready. Is that the way it is?
Yeah. The teacher arrives when the student is ready. Yeah.
So in other words, you could have somebody in front of you trying to teach you. Like, for example, you could have a teenage girl, right? And the mother is trying to teach her, how to dress nice, stop being a slob, right? And the kid's like, Mom, leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden one day the football star gives her twinkly eyes and she's like, oh, now she's like, now all of a sudden she's going to listen to her mom on how she should dress. You know what I mean? It's just simple as that. So you got to have patience. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got to catch up to my notes here. Okay. So 3 is vision. Right? And I'm not talking about just seeing things, because we talked about that in number 1. I'm talking about optimal desired future. Optimal desired future. This goes back to number 1 that we just spoke about, quite a bit earlier, being able to observe. Now, here is the trick. Can you see in your mind's eye what it could be, or an ideal scene for maximum use? So in number 1, we're looking objectively.
Yeah.
Outside of us. We're looking at the environment. This vision is subjectively. So it's your mind's eye, and it's you imagining how you can manipulate this house or this yard or this garage or this commercial apartment or whatever to have greater value. Right? Then once you see that, you can carefully cultivate the departure from the ideal scene. So you see in your mind's eye, like the ideal scene. This is what I can make it look like. Right. Nobody sees that. So now you have to reverse engineer it, because you have a departure from that ideal scene.
So it's not like what you want. Like we walk into a house that's completely gutted or something. You really have to have a vision what it could be.
Right. For example, the house that we just renovated, when we bought it, the guy ripped out the bathroom. So the first floor bathroom has 4 walls and a 3-inch concrete floor.
Yeah.
So I mean, you were there, but I had to envision, where's the tub going to go? Where's the toilet going to go? Where's the vanity going to go? And what are we going to do with this 3-inch concrete floor?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because there's a transition from the hallway into the bathroom with the floor. So we have to make sure that that transition isn't too high or too low, because people will trip and fall. And it will be a point that, believe it or not, could actually deter a buyer from buying. Right. So you have to vision that. Right. So it's the optimal desired future that I'm looking at in my mind's third eye. It's subjective. Okay.
Yeah.
Much different than number 1, where you're observing, which is objective.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to do this, right? So once you get the ideal scene in your head, like, in other words, what do I want it to look like when I'm done? Right? Like, ideal scene meaning the goal or the end result of what I think I can do. Okay. You now look at, okay, well, I can see that in my head. I could see it with the toilet and the tub and the vanity and the, like what color the walls are and what kind of floor, because we ended up putting down a tile floor, all this kind of stuff. Right. Now I have to reverse engineer it and come all the way back to where I am, just 4 walls.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've gone through that process, right, I now have to put together a plan that is step by step to get me up to the ideal scene.
Right.
Right. So this is pretty profound, but I want you to understand, and a lot of this happens naturally and you don't think about it, but I wanted to explain this for some that have trouble with visioning things. Right. So the real estate term that's most often used in this scenario is called added value.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when we look at properties, that's one of the things that you and I talk about quite a bit, is what's our added value. Right. So what does added value mean?
Well, you have a situation now with the property's condition, the income that it can make, the services that it allow people to have, laundry, whatever, the yard, and then what can we do with it to make it more attractive to people, that they would want to live there and pay a little more money, make it more profitable? What can we do to make it better in some way?
Right. So basically what you just said in my head, because here's what I heard, is you make the most amount of money, or you receive the most amount of money for a property when it's at its peak ideal scene.
Right.
So in other words, it looks its best.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's how you receive or get the highest price for the property.
Yeah. In some way you're optimizing the property, the situation, and charge more for pets, all those things, and landscape it, or put a playground in the back, make people happier to be there, whatever they need.
Now, the interesting thing is that very often we're taught, okay, that buying an ugly house in a pretty neighborhood is the thing to do. So in other words, the added value is the property itself. It's the paint, it's the sidewalks, it's the landscaping, it's the roof. We're taught instinctively or intuitively. Intuitively means that we're taught this without actually being taught it. It's just something we think we know because it's common knowledge, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're taught intuitively that you should buy the ugliest house in the prettiest neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And that all the added value is with the physical universe.
Mm.
Until a guy like me comes along and I tell you, no. You could actually buy pretty houses with no added value to the house at all. and bring added value to your seller with a mortgage relief, like buying it subject to. Somebody owes $190,000 on a $200,000 piece of property. The added value is relieving him of that payment.
Mm-hmm.
The added value to your buyer is allowing them to buy that same house without bank qualifying. So those are like subjective added values. So if you're in the wholesale business, or if you're in the flip, rehab and flip business, you're chasing deals that are not easy to buy, because the bank, the REO, real estate owned properties, like we're trying to buy a 6-family right now, is real estate owned, right?
Yeah.
Bank cares about is what's the most amount of money they can get. They could give two craps about what we do. And the numbers that they're at, we thought they were good. And then I texted you yesterday, and like when I get all done with the analysis, it's like we're making what, like $680 a month.
Yeah.
Right? Profit.
Mm.
I lost you. Am I off on what's up?
There was a tiny bit of freezing, but I heard you.
Okay. So we were looking at a 6-family house yesterday, and we have like $600 and something a month in positive cash flow. Is that good? $100 a door? I don't think so. It's not worth it. Right. So,
well, it'd be one thing if it would just lay down and just get in there. That's not supposed to be terrible, up to 6 units, 8 or 10, but there's a whole rehab involved. So that's a whole other story.
That's what my point is a lot of people will jump on that, and a lot of people will buy that because they think the added value is in the building. All I'm saying is that what makes me unique is my vision on added value often is the relief of a situation with a seller.
Mm-hmm.
The most investors don't think that. Most investors think that the added value is to paint it and make it look pretty.
So it sounds like they're missing the whole human side, and just looking at the physical part and avoiding or missing the whole human part. There's a person there, like some of the houses we bought, they had to move. They had like 4 weeks to move. They had to go. They had a problem in the family, and a realtor can't get them out of the house in 4 weeks. We could.
That's right. So how many real estate investors are on a podcast right now, or not right now, but how many real estate investors have actually talked about personalities and how to talk to people? How many investors? I mean, this may not even, I'm going to tell you right now, this is not going to be a popular podcast because it's not the fad, like this is not like what most real estate investors talk about. But I'm here to tell you that if you're sitting in front of somebody and they got a $230,000 house and they're asking $260,000 and they own it free and clear, and you could pay $260,000 and sell it for $260,000 and over the course of 5 years make $84,000, you might want to listen to what I'm telling you, because without this stuff that I'm telling you right now, you couldn't make that deal. You would walk away. You're thinking, why would I want to pay $30,000 over the price? Because you could make $84,000 if you know how to do it. Which
you did.
Which I did.
Yeah.
Actually, I made more than that. And there's always, when I do that math, there's one piece that there's another $15,000, and I remember how it happened. And then sometimes it floats in, sometimes it floats out.
Yeah, you said something like they didn't buy the house the first year, so the second year the price went up a little bit more, or the payments went up, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so I added to on the lease, the end of the 12-month lease, month 13, the price of the house went up 0.5% every month. So it added another $15,000 to the house. Yeah,
that's a little bit of incentive for them to do the deal. Don't just sit there. Do the deal. Get out. Buy it.
So what happens is with this added value, especially the like I can paint it and I could do this. Most people think they have this skill, but they really don't. Like my wife will tell me what she would do to a house, and I'll look at her and I'll be like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, I would do, like, I'll give you a classic example. I had a student one time, almost every house she looked at, she's going to add a room. Well, we could blow the kitchen out, make the kitchen bigger, or we can add a living room. Well, And after a while, it was like, did you go to the town hall? Does the zoning allow that? My wife will do the same thing. It's like, oh, well, we'll just do this. And I'm like, like, we'll just move the kitchen so that the sink is under the window. I'm like, did you, not that it can't be done, but it becomes cost effective. So a lot of people have imagination, but they don't always have the mechanical background or having done it before, the experience. Now, that's important. Okay.
Yeah, but there's also the fact, sometimes you look at houses and it'll say, hey, if you put a kitchen in, it'll cost $20,000 and it'll increase the value of your home $12,000. Wait a minute, I just lost $8,000. So you're smart to go, wait, if we spend that much money, we're not going to get that much money back. Are we doing this for a business or to make a pretty house and hand it to somebody else so they have a happy life and we make no money? So you also have to realize, will it make you money or cost you money? Don't do it.
Right. And I've done that with you many, many times, because you'll come to me and say whatever. And I'll be like, okay, well, that increased the value of the house. So we're going to ask 180. Will that make it 185 or 183 or what's the number when we're done?
Yeah.
Right. And I just kind of stay focused on that. That's the vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
Now that drops us right into number 4. Okay.
Okay.
4 is efficiency. Okay. Which to me is another way of saying, are you not dispersed? And dispersed means having scattered random thoughts and you're not organized. Think of mercury. You drop mercury on the table and you put your finger on it and it disperses. It just scatters. Ironically enough, and I'm going to say this, like Levin would say, yeah, I'm going to say it. Most people are dispersed. They have trouble staying focused. Okay, which is another one. But here is what I do to check the sanity or the ability of my seller to think.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard this one. Lay it on us, Mr. Hawthorne.
So would you agree or not agree that you could have a seller that is dispersed and has too many things going on and has trouble controlling their thoughts and it affects your deal?
Oh, sure.
Okay, good. So you need to know that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I have another question before I drop these on you. Okay. Do you not agree that most of my sellers, I marry them?
Well, I think what you're saying is that you're involved with them for a bit of a while, some years. So your lives are interconnected. So, yeah. So
is the money worth that insane person after 10 months of driving you nuts?
No.
Right. So we've actually had deals like that where the person keeps changing and they have dispersing thoughts. And every time you talk to them, they have another idea. And I'll be like, after a while, I'll be like, Pete, they can go pound salt. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with this person, because what's it going to be like in 7 or 8 months from now? That $100 or $500 or 20,000 isn't worth the aggravation of an insane person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So here we go. Number 1, you look at their physical surroundings as much as possible. If it's nice and neat, their thoughts are organized and nice and neat. If their physical surroundings are messy and cluttered, you'll find that their thoughts and their ideas are the same way, usually dispersed. So we've talked about this in past podcasts, not as deep as this, but your surroundings are a mirror image of your thoughts. So if you have messy spaces and a messy desk and a messy email system and a messy way to keep track of your leads, that's how you think. Sorry, I didn't make it. You did. Right? Yeah. So if we go into a seller's house and it's a disaster, now I'm not talking about an ugly house that they just inherited or something like that. I'm talking about in their like living quarters.
Right. And if you don't have their living quarters, go look at their car.
Yeah. Do whatever you can to get in their natural habitat so you can see how do they live. Right.
Yep.
Sense?
Oh, hell yeah.
That's number one. So that's one point of observation that you could do to see if they're actually sane or if they're just some crazy random thinker with a bunch of ideas. Okay. Number two, or B, the amount of time it takes to answer questions.
Yep.
Or when a remark is made, how long does it take to register and return a response? A slow answer tells me the mind is blunted, at least on that subject, dispersed, troubled, and possibly has trouble solving problems with that topic or subject.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. A fast answer tells me I'm dealing with a fast, sane mind, and they solve problems fairly quickly, and they can produce solutions. Not that they would be the right solutions, but at least they're thinking with solutions. You know, both my daughters work for me. And one of the things that I taught them very early on is don't bring me a problem without a solution. Bring me a problem with a solution. Will it be the right solution? I don't know. But at least they're thinking with, Dad, we need to do this. And here's the reason why. Right. And then at least they're thinking with the right thing. At least it tells me that they're trying to do something about it. Right. So when I'm with somebody and I'm doing the walkthrough, you know, when you knock on the door, like we talked about this in past, you knock on the door, they answer the door. What's the first thing you do?
Do you have to have a dog?
Have any dogs, right? And then when you walk in the house, the next thing you do is there anybody else in the house? You know, big guy, you know, I'm a big white guy, even worse, right? And I don't want to be walking in on some teenager and when she's in her bedroom. I don't have trouble. Okay. You know, innocently, and it turns into something it shouldn't be. So the thing I ask is there anybody else in the house? Yeah, my daughter's home. Okay, good. So now before I open any doors or I go anywhere, it's like, this isn't where your daughter is she? You know? So I make sure that I find that out. Okay. So once I do that, then I start talking to the seller as they're showing me the house. I get a lot of data from that. But when I'm in the basement and I'm in the attic and I'm in the garage and I'm in their bedroom, like I'm in their habitat. I observe, how do they live? Are they clean and tidy, or are they messy, and are they a slob? I can evaluate whether or not this person, and I learned this lesson a very odd way. I think it was Ron LeGrand that said this. I could be wrong. But he said that people that collect boats and cars and all kinds of that kind of stuff in their yard are usually not very good with their finances. And those,
oh man, okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. It's not that I don't believe it, but what a stretch.
Right. And he's like, those are good people to send letters to, because they're probably not good with their finances. Now, if you take people that have, you know, they got the boat that hasn't been used for 5 years in the yard and covered up, and you know they have all this salvage stuff in the yard, cars and boats and lawnmowers, right? And then you match that with, do they have tax liens or code violations? Bingo, that's your seller right there. That's the one you got to talk to. Okay, but it kind of falls along the same line, like how do they keep their stuff?
Well, it sounds like if they get in trouble one part of their life, they'll get in trouble with another part of their life. If they can't even get a car off their property, they might not handle something else, like fixing something, paying a bill, making the phone call, following up, whatever, and wind up in trouble.
In the profound pool right now, so we're going to just keep going because you bring up a good point. So if a guy's fighting with his wife, is he excited to go out and cut the grass and take care of the yard?
No, he hops in the car and drives down to the bar.
His attention's on the arguments, right? His attention is not so he's dispersed. He's not thinking with, I need to take care of my house. He's not thinking with creating a future. he's thinking with this problem that's like right in front of his eyes. He can't see anything else.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying this is a bad person. It's just he's got a situation. That's the guy I want to talk to, because I can help him remove that barrier that's right in front of him and help him solve the problem, at least with real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Those are telltales on what's going on with the guy. So when you're walking around and somebody's house is messy, doesn't mean they're a slob. It just means that, they got divorced and they got the 3 kids and the husband's like not giving them money. Right. And it's a woman living there by herself and she works like 15 hours a week and there's teenage kids living there without her. That could be the situation. So that makes me ask questions like, I wonder why this place is messy. What's going on?
Mm.
Where's their attention?
Right.
Right. Now, put that with the ability to ask a question, right? And then I want to read these words because these are good. So ask a question and how long it takes to register and return.
Yeah. With a real answer, not just words. And sometimes people will be saying words, but they're not answering the question. They're often some other. So the real answer, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So do you have a car? And they're like, what kind of car?
Yeah.
They didn't answer the question. No. Do you have a car? You
What
mean
do you want to know? Why do you want to know? Why are you asking me if I have a car?
do you have a car? Right? You didn't answer the question. So let's do it again. Do you have a car?
Yes.
So you answered the question. So the time from it took me 3 questions to get the answer, that's considered a lag.
Yeah. Something's going on in their head.
Yeah. So that's the point where you ask the question, right? It has to register and then return. It took you that amount of time to receive the question, register it, and then return the answer. So that tells me that either something's going on or you're dispersed or something's not right there. Right?
Yep.
There you go. Okay. So when I talk about, oh man, we're making this podcast way too long. When I talk about efficiency, that's what I'm talking about. So let me just sum up efficiency. How many times have we heard students on recordings that talk about shit that doesn't need to be talked about in the house?
Oh, all the time.
That's this efficiency thing I'm talking about. They themselves can't register and return questions the sellers give them.
Yeah.
Correct. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So, they go off and like I said, I've practiced a lot on my stories, but my stories are parable lessons that are going to help, or actually it's not even lessons. That's the wrong word. It's demonstrations of my ability. A story is a demonstration of my ability. So when I tell the seller, when I'm doing subject to my story of what happened to me about the deed and the mortgage and all that, and what I learned from it, it demonstrates what I can do. Right?
Yeah. Well, it presents you as a problem solver too. Like if something happens, this guy's been through it. He knows what to do. He knows what to do. That's the important thing. That's what people worry about. What if? Yeah, this, answer. So they're not going to be that worried.
Right. So your ability to collect and sort data is a direct gauge of your success as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to go a step above and beyond just buying an ugly house, painting it, what do they say? Lipstick on a pig.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, because I'm going to tell you right now, lipstick on a pig only works when the economy's good and the buyer can buy those. In other words, the banks can lend buyers money to buy those pretty houses.
Oh, yeah.
The economy spins around and the banks tighten up. Where are you at? Right? How many investors think they're good investors? I have a couple students right now that will rename nameless, that think that they're just the cat's meow because they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year flipping houses.
Yeah.
buying ugly houses, fixing them, and selling them. All that we have to do is have something like the coronavirus come along, and the rug is pulled out right from underneath them.
Yeah.
All it takes is some media for 3 days pounding people on some idea like we just bombed Iraq to change your business. That's why the 7 strategies I use work so well, because each one of those strategies is for a different environment. So as the environment switches, we switch. Like we were buying fix and flips and making money.
Yep.
Now we don't have any. We sold them all, and all I'm doing is concentrating on slot deals and lease option deals because that's what the environment warrants. So we just within weeks switched our business.
Yeah.
Right. And we're making just as much money, if not more. Okay. So the last thing on this point, which is keep losing track, which is efficiency. I find the poor investors, poor meaning like not making money.
Mm-hmm.
I find the poor investors often think their ideas and opinions are right and has not humbled to this efficient way of observing and efficiently collecting facts to make major decisions. So they think their opinions and their ideas are actually relevant.
And yet they're not doing so well, but they're still right.
And they think that their ideas. So if you're not doing well, then you need to reflect upon yourself with third eye, mind's third eye, and you need to take a look at some of the opinions and facts that you're operating off of, because maybe they're not correct. You need to humble yourself, and I only know this, Peter, because I could be, I used to be, I don't think I am anymore. I could be a very opinionated bastard. But I got to tell you, being a marketing guy and doing direct marketing and doing marketing, like especially for flipping houses for rookies, and you spend all this money and you think you're right, and you send out this campaign and you spend all this money and then nobody responds.
Yeah.
It's very humbling. And after a while, you get to a point like where I am at now, where things that I say that people will think are too simplistic and won't take my advice because it's too simple. I've spent many, and most of the things I say, many hours and lots of money learning the things that I've learned by bringing it to the market.
Yeah, well, you'll be surprised what people actually react to. You think,
right?
But maybe you'll react to it, but you're not selling to yourself or buying from yourself. You don't matter. What matters is what everybody else thinks. If it's the opposite of what you think and you make money and you help people, who cares? So you have to find out.
Great late Dan Kennedy talks about how you should sell things. What you should do is you should write the sales letter and see if you get orders and then develop the product. Right?
We have a blue model. We have a yellow model. We have a green model. We're making yellow models right after it comes back. Jeez.
All right. Next up is number 5 is focus. And I'm going to speed it up a little bit because I've taken way too much time explaining something. So next up is focus. This is, as far as I'm concerned, is the most important and the hardest to teach and most misunderstood in any activity. It's the difference between raving success and raving failure. This one thing.
Yeah.
Intention. Which is a determination to get what you want or has in your mind. So intention is a determination to get what you want or to produce what's in your mind. It's fueled by self-determinism. It's one thing to wish, It's a whole other thing to be willing to die for it.
That's true.
When you start to notice every impulse, this is very crafted. This took me a while to write this paragraph. So this is for you, Peter. You ready?
Oh, great.
When you, not meant directed at you, I just meant that you'll appreciate it, right?
Okay.
When you start to notice every impulse you have is heading in a certain predetermined direction, the command factor for every decision is aiming towards this goal, and everything happens the way you desire it to, your intention's in.
Mm.
I'm going to read that again, okay?
Yeah.
When you start to notice every impulse you have is heading in a certain predetermined direction, the command factor for every decision is aiming towards this goal, and everything happens the way you desire it, your intention is in. And you'll make more deals no one else will.
I remember thinking, I think I asked you once or twice, but I'm not sure if I ever got it clear in my head. Because I know in some things, like if you're a football player, you can't just throw the ball. You really have to throw the ball. You really have to run hard. You really have to have a lot of personal drive and commitment. Like, you're not going to stop me, you know? I wondered how much you needed that in this. Can it, you're not just writing a number on a check and handing it to somebody. You're working with people, you're convincing people. So there's more need for this. So I've always wondered, like, do I have enough? Do I have to increase that? Am I pushing hard enough? Am I believing hard enough? It's a question.
You just helped me so much, you have no idea, because it's a great analogy. So intention, it's not throwing the ball. It's where you expect the ball to land and what's going to happen to it once it gets there.
Mm.
It's not throwing the ball. Intention doesn't, because that's self-determined.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the dude catching it?
Yeah.
Is he able to catch it? Is he qualified? Is he in the right position? Did you throw the ball hard enough or soft enough? There's so many factors. You intend not to throw the ball. You intend for him to catch it.
Yeah.
And do the right thing with it.
That's a lot of responsibility.
That's intention. You're on both sides of the play. You're on your side and his side.
Man, that's crazy. Because come on, let's face it. A lot of people are employed, not self-employed, employed. Right. They go to work, they do the job. And I know people have attitudes like, well, it didn't work out. It's not my fault. What do I care?
Right.
It's not my place. But when you have your own business, when you're trying to do your own deals, you have to care about both sides. Because you can't just say, well, the guy was a jerk. Well, you didn't make the job. You didn't get the work. You didn't make the money. You didn't get the job.
Right.
So you have to work on both ends of the spectrum.
So let's go back to talking, like we were talking about observation, all that kind of stuff, right? So you have to put yourself in the seller's shoes and receive what you're giving while you're giving it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't do that correctly, then you won't make as many deals. We're back to, okay, well, I'm going to buy this bank-owned property. Like we're putting an offer on a 6-family house today, and it's like, there's your number. Okay, no problem. I could care.
No conversation. No, what do you need? And, but there's too much renovation. You should sell to me for less. They don't care.
Right. And little does somebody know that if I had the right deal, what we're putting an offer in, which I think is too much money, right? I would pay more money if I was in the right situation with the right loan and the right terms in place.
Yeah.
Just by talking to somebody, finding out what the situation is.
Yeah.
Right. So having these traits that I'm talking about sounds really profound, and it sounds like, oh my God, it's not. I'm just digging into them so you really understand them. But if you follow these characteristics, these traits, and kind of imbue them in yourself, right? Then you'll notice that you'll make more deals. I'm telling you right now, out of all of these, if you just rewind this tape and listen to it 10 times where I talk about intention and you absolutely get it, you will make more deals. I'm telling you, intention is everything. If you intend to close and you take responsibility for your buyer and the closing agents and the mortgage guy and all of that, and you help as many of those as possible to get to the goal, you'll not only be a raving success with all those people because you help them, you'll also get more business. And there's just so many things. So taking responsibility for both sides. You know, your analogies, I thought for days on what an analogy would be, and you just helped me. Throwing a football. You got a guy in NFL, and he's throwing a football and trying to make a play. His intention is not to throw the ball. His intention is for that guy to catch it and do the right thing with the ball. That's his intention.
Yeah.
You take that much responsibility and you're that fixated on doing that without being needy. You got it. You nailed it. Okay.
Okay.
Number 6 is relationship building, which simply means, are we okay? Because I keep hearing things in my headphones.
Yeah, I missed that last line.
So boy, something wrong here. So relationship building.
There it is. Relationship building.
Yeah. Which simply means the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected. Or in a state of being connected. Okay, so relationship building, which simply means to me, the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected or are in a state of being connected. I don't need to drone on about this long. Just follow this basic natural law and you will be perfectly fine. You'll do it every time. You build trust by matching your actions to your words. In other words, do what you say, and you're going to do this building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're gonna so building relationships simply means the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected or are in a state of being connected. Here's a magic, and this is a simplicity that you'll take for granted and not understand the importance of what this does, because this is huge, but it sounds too simple, right? Keeping agreements builds affinity. Trust and affinity are glue in a relationship. So you build trust by matching your actions to your words. So do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
That builds affinity. Once you have trust and affinity, that's the glue of any relationship. Think about it. Why are you married to marry? That's a mouthful. For 44 years. You have affinity. You trust her, and you have affinity for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the day, you're turning to her. Nobody else. You're not turning to kids. You're not turning to me. You're turning to her. Like, Mary, what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have trust and you have affinity.
That's right.
It bonds every relationship. Okay.
So you have to keep your word. And that's a really, I know you use that as a very fast way to gauge if somebody's worth working with.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't do what you say, how are you going to work with them? How are you going to buy a house, sell a house, work with them, team up, any of that stuff. So
Right.
We're real easy with that. When people say what they're going to do and they do it, we're okay.
Right. Last but not least, number 7, and my favorite. But just like I was telling you before, I have to give it to you in the right sequence for you to get it.
I have no idea what it's going to be.
Leverage. Leverage, as I'm using it here, means using something or someone to maximize potential or advantage. So leveraging is what I mean. What I mean in this definition is using something or someone to maximum potential or advantage. The things you will leverage most are money or assets, people or relationships, and opportunity.
Okay.
So the things that you will leverage the most are money or assets, people or relationships, and opportunity. Value add.
Right.
To do anything on a large or larger scale, you will need leveraging.
Right. And people sometimes say, how can you buy real estate? You don't have any money. Well, it's leveraging.
So exactly. So let me just, in a very short dissertation here, let me just explain this, okay? If I had to go experience every single aspect of real estate, I think it would take me more than a lifetime.
Right. That's a general educational approach. Absolutely.
So if I had to go experience every aspect of real estate, in other words, make every mistake myself and learn from my own deals, okay, it would take me more than a lifetime. So I leverage that by reading books and seeing how other people did it, so I don't have to do it myself. So when Ron LeGrand says so grumpily, you think education's expensive? Try ignorance.
Yep.
That's what he's talking about. So people that tell me that they want to do my coaching program after they do a deal have no idea. They want to do
like it's like you want to get paid, then you get a job.
Yeah.
Well, I can't get a job because I got no car. So as soon as I get a job and get a car, wait a minute.
Right. Exactly.
No.
So, I tell folks, that they're going to lose more deals that they don't even know they're going to lose without having a mentor. Now, only reason why having me as a mentor is going to help you is for this leverage point. So I'm going to leverage what you have for resources so like this is like we talked about the stock market one time, right? You put $5,000 in the stock market and you get yield, you get money back, right? Let's say it's 10% a year, you get $500 back.
Yeah.
Right? Why would anybody want to do that? It's the stupidest thing in the world to me. It's like idiotic to me. It's like, put a gun to my head, pull the trigger. Why would you do that? The reason why is because I think you could take that same $5,000 and you can buy a $100,000 house. So now the $5,000 just turned into $100,000 asset. And oh yeah, by the way, when you need the money, you can go borrow, you can go refinance it, get the $5,000 back out, and the asset keeps working. You can't do that with the stock market.
Right.
That's leveraging.
Yeah.
Point is I take 5,000 and I take $5,000, which is an asset in cash. I give it to my banker, get a loan for $100,000 asset. I'm now worth $100,000. I took 5,000, turned it into 100. It's like we talk about infinity returns. You put down $100 on a lease option and you make $6,000 for a down payment and you make $400 a month for 3 years. That's infinite returns. It only cost you $100.
Yep. Yep.
Right? That's
leverage. Yeah.
So to do anything on a large or larger scale, you will you will need to leverage.
Mhm.
Leveraging matters, right?
Yeah.
And leverage was put last on my list because all the preceding 6 add up to maximizing leverage.
Yeah, you would need to have all that going to leverage.
So you can progressively and gradiently increase your uh, uh, zone of control and expand.
Mhm.
And if you do all of what we just talked about, you'll trump any real estate education, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, to me, you're talking about how are you going to use whatever you know. It doesn't do any good to have knowledge if you can implement it on the spot and utilize it to its optimum degree. So
If
it all
you,
falls in your lap.
that's right. If you use these 7 traits I'm talking about to their fullest extent, then you could just be in present time and not need anything other than these skills to make deals.
Mm.
Because they'll just make sense.
Yeah.
How many times have we been in the car and you're like, you want me to explain the deal to you? What's my response?
We're going to a place.
We're driving to talk
Yeah.
to somebody about a deal, and you say, you want me to
Yeah.
explain the deal to you?
We're gonna be there in 15 minutes, and you don't know yet because you haven't gotten there and gone through the information to decide where you want to go with it.
And what do I say?
You say no. We'll find out when we get to the house.
Right. Because I want to get it right from the horse's mouth. I don't want your opinions. I don't want your ideas. I don't want your thoughts to inject or to infect my thought process when I'm in the house.
Yeah, I have a piece of paper with some numbers on it and a couple of lines, a couple of sentences, but you're going to get the actual experience to determine what's really happening to find out what's really needed.
I trust that more than anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry I went a little bit long here today, but I think we covered things that is not typical for a real estate podcast for sure. We definitely jumped in the let's get into philosophy, thoughts, and ideas, right? Which is probably not going to be popular with most of my listeners, but I'm definitely going to have my coaching clients go listen to this. It's going to get uploaded into the coaching portal because I want them to listen to it, because this is definitely coaching material. This is something that this podcast is something that my coaching clients would pay me hundreds and hundreds of dollars to be in a seminar or to do a mastermind group with. This is like what I would do in a mastermind group, is this type of conversation, right? So if you haven't already, please go subscribe to this podcast so that when we add new episodes, you're ready to get them. So subscribe if you're on iTunes, subscribe if you're on Stitchers or Google Play, wherever you are, wherever you listen to us, please subscribe. And also, please leave us reviews. My reviews have been going up. We've been getting some good reviews. There's been a few that people want us to change things, which we've done. So if you have an opinion, which everybody does, what do they say? Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, right? So I know so go to Flipping Houses for Rookies /podcast, or just go to Flipping Houses for Rookies and scan down the page, and you'll see the podcast is right there. And right below the podcast, where you can listen to them, there's a link there that says leave us a review. So just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and scroll down, find the podcast, and right underneath that, you can hit review, or you can just type in flippinghousesforrookies.com /podcast, and it'll bring you to the page where you can leave reviews. So please leave Peter and I a review, and let us know how you think we're doing. And if there's changes that you need or something that happens, you can always write me a support ticket. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side says contact. Just hit that button, and those support tickets come right to me. Unless you want to know about passwords and stuff like that, then they go to Emma. But I answer all those support tickets myself daily. I usually do it several times a day. So if you have any questions about flipping or anything that we just talked about, please send me tickets immediately so I can help you with that confusion and sort it out so you don't compile more than one confusion while you're trying to learn and end up with a pile like leaves with all the confusions, and then you end up saying that real estate doesn't work. Okay. So Peter, thank you for being with me today. As always, you're definitely a trusted friend. You've been here with us for we've been together 203 episodes and we manage every week no matter what.
Yeah.
So
well, it's great for me because I learn a lot, and my 2 cents helps folks listening. That's good for me and good for them and helps everyone. So that's fine.
So true. All right, guys, over and out. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.